In the quiet darkness of the Arizona desert, Alex Carter sat alone in the control room of a small observatory. The hum of computers filled the air as he sipped his third cup of coffee that night. Alex was an astronomer who spent most of his nights staring at the stars, searching for something, anything, that could answer humanity's biggest questions. Tonight, however, he wasn't expecting to find anything unusual. It was just another routine scan of the sky. As the telescope swept across the heavens, data streamed onto his screen in lines of numbers and graphs. Most of it was noise, random signals bouncing around the universe. But then something caught his eye. A faint signal, barely noticeable, stood out from the rest. At first, Alex thought it might be interference from Earth, a satellite, or maybe even static from a distant storm. But the more he looked at it, the more it seemed deliberate. There was a pattern to it, a rhythm that didn't belong to any natural phenomenon he knew. Alex leaned closer to the screen, his heart beating faster. He replayed the signal over and over, trying to make sense of it. It wasn't like anything he'd ever seen before. After hours of analysis, he realized the signal contained repeating sequences, patterns that suggested intelligence. Someone, or something, was sending a message. Excited but unsure what to do next, Alex called Claire Bennett, one of his colleagues. Claire had been working late too, though she wasn't nearly as obsessed with the stars as Alex was. When he explained what he'd found, her voice came through the phone sounding skeptical. "Are you sure it's not just some glitch?" she asked. "Or maybe a prank?" "No," Alex replied firmly. "This is real. I think it's coming from deep space." Claire sighed on the other end of the line. "All right, let me come over. If this is what you say it is, we need to figure out what it means." When Claire arrived, she brought fresh coffee and a practical attitude. Together, they worked through the night, running tests and cross-referencing the signal against known frequencies. Slowly, they began to decode fragments of the message. It wasn't language, exactly. At least, not in any form humans used, but it did contain coordinates. Numbers that pointed to a specific location in the galaxy far beyond Earth. "This can't be a coincidence," Claire said finally, rubbing her temples. "But why would someone send us directions? And where does it lead?" Alex shrugged, feeling both thrilled and uneasy. Maybe it's an invitation, or maybe it's a warning. They debated what to do next. Should they tell the world about their discovery? Governments would want to know, of course, but announcing it publicly could cause panic. On the other hand, keeping it secret felt wrong. This wasn't just their discovery, it belonged to everyone. By dawn, they decided to share the information only with a small group of trusted colleagues. They hoped to learn more before making any big announcements. What neither of them realized, however, was that their decision would set off a chain reaction neither could have predicted. Somewhere out there, someone, or something, was watching. And now, thanks to Alex and Claire, humanity had taken its first step into the unknown. Weeks passed after Alex and Claire's discovery, but the signal remained a tightly guarded secret among their small group of colleagues. They worked tirelessly, analyzing every detail they could extract from it. The coordinates pointed to a distant part of the galaxy, far beyond anything humanity had ever explored. But what truly puzzled them was the purpose behind the message. Was it a call for help, an invitation, or something else entirely? One evening, as Alex was leaving the observatory, he noticed an unusual glow in the night sky. At first, he thought it might be a meteor or perhaps the reflection of city lights. But when he looked closer, his breath caught in his throat. Hovering silently above New York City was a strange object, a sleek, metallic probe that shimmered faintly under the moonlight. It wasn't large, no bigger than a car, but its presence was undeniable. News of the probe spread quickly. Within hours, social media erupted with photos and videos taken by stunned onlookers. People gathered in parks and rooftops, pointing their phones at the sky, trying to capture the moment. Some cheered, excited by the prospect of alien contact. Others panicked, fearing the worst. Governments scrambled to respond, unsure whether the probe posed a threat or simply came in peace. Alex and Claire were summoned to join a hastily assembled scientific panel tasked with interpreting the probe's behavior. Alongside them was Ethan Cole, a linguist known for his work on extraterrestrial communication theories. Ethan was confident, almost arrogant, believing that language would be the key to understanding the visitors. He clashed immediately with Alex, who argued for caution, warning that jumping to conclusions could have dangerous consequences. The probe itself seemed uninterested in human attempts to communicate. Instead, it moved slowly across the city, scanning everything it encountered. Buildings, streets, even people, all were cataloged in eerie detail. Its movements were smooth and deliberate, as if it were studying Earth like a scientist examining specimens under a microscope. As days turned into weeks, the probe's actions grew more perplexing. It began transmitting images back into space, images of Earth's surface, cities, and even individual humans going about their daily lives. Some interpreted this as a sign of curiosity, while others saw it as surveillance. Tensions mounted as governments debated whether to try communicating directly or to take defensive measures. Claire found herself increasingly uneasy. She confided in Rachel Moore, a psychologist brought onto the panel to assess public reactions. "It's like we're being watched," Claire admitted one evening. "But I don't think they understand us, or maybe they don't trust us." Rachel nodded thoughtfully. "Humans are unpredictable. Maybe that's why they're so cautious." Despite their concerns, amateur efforts to reach out to the probe continued. Enthusiasts around the world used lasers, radios, and even bonfires to send messages into the sky. To everyone's surprise, the probe reacted, not with hostility, but with erratic movements, as if confused or disturbed by the sudden flood of signals. Ethan seized on this as proof that communication was possible. "We need to send a clear message," he insisted during one heated meeting. "Something simple, something universal." Alex shook his head. "And risk provoking them further. We don't even know what they want." The argument ended without resolution, leaving the group divided. Meanwhile, the probe remained in the sky, silent and enigmatic. Humanity had made contact, but the question lingered. What did the aliens truly think of them? And what would happen next? The probe's sudden disappearance left everyone stunned. One moment it was hovering silently above New York City, scanning and observing, and the next, it was gone, vanished without a trace. The abruptness of its departure sent shockwaves through the scientific community and the public alike. People who had grown used to seeing the strange object in the sky now felt an unsettling mix of relief and unease. Had the aliens left for good, or were they simply regrouping? But the probe's absence didn't bring peace. In fact, things only grew stranger. Reports began flooding in from all over the world. Military bases reported equipment malfunctions, radars going dark, weapons systems failing to respond. Power grids flickered unpredictably, plunging entire neighborhoods into darkness for hours at a time. Surveillance cameras captured fleeting glimpses of shadowy figures moving just out of sight, their forms indistinct and blurry, as if they weren't fully there. Claire spent long nights poring over these accounts, her mind racing with possibilities. She couldn't shake the feeling that humanity's initial attempts to communicate might have triggered something unintended. The amateur signals sent by excited civilians, lasers flashing messages, radios broadcasting music, even bonfires lit in fields, could have been misinterpreted by the probe. What if those efforts hadn't been seen as friendly gestures but as aggressive acts? What if the aliens now saw humans as unpredictable or even dangerous? She shared her concerns with Rachel Moore, the psychologist on the panel. Over cups of lukewarm coffee in a cramped conference room, they discussed the growing paranoia spreading across the globe. "Humans don't always think before they act," Claire said, her voice low. "We rush in, full of excitement or fear, without considering the consequences." Rachel nodded, tapping her pen against the table. "And maybe that's exactly what scares them. Imagine being an alien species watching us. We're chaotic, emotional, and sometimes violent. Even when we mean well, we can come across as reckless. Their conversation took a darker turn when Rachel mentioned something that made Claire's blood run cold. What if they're not just observing anymore? What if they're testing us? The idea lingered in Claire's mind long after their meeting ended. Testing them how? And for what purpose? She decided to dig deeper into the data collected during the probe's stay. Late one night, while reviewing footage from security cameras near military installations, she noticed something odd. The shadowy figures appeared more frequently in areas where human activity was most intense, near bases, research facilities, and crowded urban centers. It was almost as if the probe, or whatever had replaced it, was drawn to places where humans exerted power or control. Alex, meanwhile, had grown quieter and more withdrawn. He blamed himself for encouraging the amateur signals, even though he hadn't directly supported them. When Claire shared her findings with him, his face turned pale. "This is bad," he muttered. "Really bad." "What do you mean?" Claire asked. Alex hesitated, choosing his words carefully. "If they're testing us, it means they're deciding whether we're worth contacting or whether we're a threat." The weight of his words hung heavy in the air. Neither of them spoke for a long time. Outside, the wind howled softly, carrying with it the uncertainty of what might come next. Somewhere out there, beyond the reach of human understanding, the aliens were watching and waiting. The tension in the room was thick as Alex stared at the screen, his fingers trembling slightly as he typed. For days, he had been working tirelessly to decode more of the original signal that had started everything. Claire sat beside him, her brow furrowed in concentration, while Ethan paced back and forth, muttering under his breath about wasted time. Rachel watched silently from the corner, her notebook open but untouched. Finally, Alex leaned back in his chair, exhaling sharply. "I think I've got something," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. On the monitor was a series of symbols they hadn't noticed before, patterns that repeated in a way that felt deliberate. It wasn't language, not exactly, but it carried meaning. Slowly, Alex pieced together fragments of what appeared to be a message. Asterisk, "We come to observe. Do not interfere." Asterisk. The words hung in the air like smoke, heavy and unsettling. Everyone froze, processing what they had just read. Claire broke the silence first. "That's why the probe left," she said softly. "All those signals we sent, it thought we were interfering." Ethan frowned, shaking his head. "No, this doesn't make sense. If they wanted to observe, why send us coordinates in the first place? Why even bother coming here?" "Maybe it was an accident," Rachel suggested hesitantly. "They didn't expect us to react the way we did. Maybe they thought we'd stay quiet and let them wash." Alex rubbed his temples, feeling a headache forming. "It doesn't matter now. What matters is figuring out what to do next." Ethan stopped pacing and turned to face the group. His eyes were bright with determination. "We need to send another message, a clear one this time. Something peaceful, something that shows we're not a threat." Claire stood up abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. "Are you serious? After everything that's happened, you want to risk provoking them again? It's our best chance." Ethan shot back. "If we don't try, we'll never know if communication is possible." Alex raised a hand, trying to calm the rising argument. "Both of you have valid points, but sending another message isn't something we can rush into. We need to think carefully about how to approach this." Rachel, who had been quiet until now, spoke up. "What if we involve people outside the scientific community? Ordinary citizens might bring fresh perspectives. They could help us craft a message that feels authentic, not too technical or forced." The idea caught everyone off guard, including Rachel herself. She glanced around the room, suddenly self-conscious. "I mean, maybe it's worth considering. People are already scared and curious. This could give them a sense of control." Claire hesitated, then nodded slowly. "She's right. If we keep this within our small group, we'll only end up arguing." Bringing in outsiders might help us see things differently. After some debate, the team agreed to recruit volunteers, people from various backgrounds, who could contribute ideas for the new message. Rachel offered to find candidates, emphasizing the importance of diversity and creativity. By the end of the day, a plan began to take shape. As Alex packed up his laptop, he couldn't shake the feeling that they were walking a tightrope. One wrong step, and everything could collapse. But deep down, he also felt a flicker of hope. Humanity had always been resourceful, adaptable. Maybe, just maybe, that was enough to bridge the gap between worlds. Outside, the stars shone brightly in the night sky, indifferent to the turmoil below. Somewhere beyond them, the aliens waited, watching silently. The question remained, would humanity prove itself worthy or dangerous? Rachel spent the next few days searching for volunteers who could bring fresh perspectives to the project. She didn't want scientists or experts. There were already plenty of those on the panel. Instead, she looked for ordinary people from different walks of life, individuals whose experiences might help shape a message that felt genuine and human. The first person she chose was Lucas Drake, a mechanic who ran a small garage in a quiet suburb. Lucas had always been fascinated by space, even though he rarely talked about it. When Rachel explained what they were trying to do, his eyes lit up with excitement. "You're telling me I get to help talk to aliens?" he asked, grinning. "Count me in." Next, Rachel recruited Maya Torres, a high school teacher known for her passion for astronomy. Mia often spent her evenings stargazing with her students, teaching them about constellations and planets. She saw this as an opportunity to inspire not just herself, but also the younger generation. If we can show kids that their voices matter, maybe they'll grow up believing they can change the world, she told Rachel. The final volunteer was Daniel Hayes, a retired soldier struggling to adjust to civilian life. Daniel wasn't sure why Rachel picked him. He joked that he wasn't exactly the creative type. But Rachel insisted that his experience working under pressure and his ability to think strategically would be valuable. Reluctantly, he agreed to join. When the group gathered for the first time, Alex and Claire introduced them to the task at hand. They explained the importance of crafting a message that conveyed peace and understanding without seeming threatening. Ethan, still eager to prove his theories, suggested using mathematical patterns or scientific concepts. But the volunteers had other ideas. Lucas spoke up first. "Math is great, but it's not really human, you know. What if we send them something artistic, like drawings or music?" Mia nodded enthusiastically. "Exactly. Art is universal. It connects people, even if we don't speak the same language. Maybe aliens are the same way." Daniel added his thoughts more cautiously. "We should also show them nature. Pictures of forests, oceans, animals. If they're watching this, they've probably noticed how much we rely on our environment. That might tell them something about who we are." As the discussion continued, the room filled with energy. For the first time in weeks, there was a sense of hope. The volunteers worked together, combining their ideas into a cohesive plan. They decided to create a multimedia message that included images of Earth's landscapes, recordings of music from different cultures, and even short videos showing everyday moments. Children laughing, families sharing meals, people helping one another. Alex watched the process unfold with a mix of awe and relief. These strangers, brought together by chance, were doing something remarkable. They weren't bound by rules or protocols. They simply wanted to reach out, to connect. By the end of the week, the message was ready. It wasn't perfect, and no one knew if the aliens would understand it. But it was honest, a reflection of humanity's complexity, creativity, and desire for connection. As the team prepared to transmit the message, Rachel found herself smiling for the first time in days. The outcome was uncertain, but one thing was clear. Humanity had taken another step forward. Whether the aliens responded or not, The volunteers had proven that even in the face of fear and uncertainty, people could come together to try something bold and beautiful. Outside, the stars twinkled silently, waiting to see what humans would do next. The day they transmitted the message, the atmosphere in the observatory was electric. Alex, Claire, and the volunteers gathered around the control panel, their eyes glued to the monitors. No one spoke. The weight of what they were about to do hung heavy in the air. For weeks, they had debated, created, and refined their message, a blend of art, music, and nature meant to represent humanity's best qualities. Now, it was time to send it out into the vast unknown. Lucas stood closest to the equipment, his hands shoved deep into his pockets. He glanced at Mia, who gave him a small, reassuring smile. Daniel leaned against the wall, his arms crossed, looking tense but determined. Rachel watched them all with quiet pride, feeling a strange mix of hope and dread. Ethan hovered near the controls, eager to see if his theories about communication would finally bear fruit. "Are we ready?" Alex asked, breaking the silence. His voice was calm, but there was an edge of nervousness beneath it. Claire nodded, her fingers hovering over the keyboard. "Ready as we'll ever be." With a deep breath, she pressed the button. The message shot out into space, carried by radio waves that would travel unimaginable distances. For a moment, nothing happened. The room felt eerily still, as if the universe itself was holding its breath. Then, something changed. On the monitor, a faint signal appeared, weak at first, but growing stronger. It wasn't random noise this time. The pattern was unmistakable. The aliens were responding. Everyone froze, staring at the screen in stunned silence. Slowly, the signal began to take shape, forming intricate patterns that resembled abstract art. Alongside the visuals came harmonious tones, soft and melodic, like nothing any of them had ever heard before. "It's beautiful," Maya whispered, her voice trembling with awe. Ethan leaned forward, his eyes wide. "This is incredible. They're communicating back." For the first time since the probe's arrival, the group felt a flicker of genuine connection. It wasn't just observation or testing. It was interaction. The aliens weren't hostile or indifferent. They seemed curious, even fascinated. But the moment of wonder didn't last long. As the signal continued, Alex noticed something unsettling. The patterns shifted subtly, becoming more complex and harder to interpret. The tones grew louder, almost overwhelming. It was as if the aliens were trying to convey something urgent. But what? Claire frowned, typing furiously to analyze the data. "They're not just responding to us. They're reacting to everything we've done. All the signals, all the interference." Daniel stepped closer, his brow furrowed. "You think they're upset?" "I don't know," Claire admitted. "But I don't think they understand us. Or maybe we don't understand them." Before anyone could respond, alarms blared through the observatory. A red warning flashed on the screen. The signal was interfering with nearby systems. Equipment flickered, and lights dimmed briefly before stabilizing. Panic spread quickly among the team. "We need to shut it down," Alex shouted, reaching for the controls. "No, wait," Ethan protested. "We can't stop now. This is our chance. It's destabilizing the system." Alex snapped. "If we don't cut it off, we risk losing everything." Reluctantly, Claire hit the kill switch, severing the connection. The room fell silent once again, the hum of machinery the only sound. The alien signal faded away, leaving behind an eerie void. Rachel broke the silence, her voice soft but firm. "Whatever just happened, it wasn't just communication. It was a reaction. And I'm not sure we're ready for what comes next." Outside, the stars twinkled silently, watching and waiting. The days following the alien response were a whirlwind of emotions for the team. While the initial excitement of making contact lingered, it was quickly overshadowed by confusion and unease. The intricate patterns and haunting tones sent by the aliens had left everyone with more questions than answers. What did they mean? Were they truly trying to communicate, or was this some form of warning? Claire spent hours poring over the data, searching for clues that might explain the aliens' intentions. As she analyzed the signals, one detail stood out. The patterns weren't just random designs. They were detailed scans, images of Earth's ecosystems, cities, and even individual humans. It was as if the aliens were cataloging everything they observed, studying humanity like specimens under a microscope. But there was something else, something far more unsettling. The scans focused heavily on moments of human aggression, arguments caught on camera, military exercises, even violent scenes from movies or news broadcasts. Claire felt a chill run down her spine as she realized what this might mean. "They're not just observing us," she muttered to herself. "They're learning about our behavior." When she shared her findings with the group, the room fell silent. Lucas leaned back in his chair, scratching his head. "You're saying they're watching how we fight?" "Not just fight," Claire replied, her voice low. "They're looking at everything. How we solve problems, how we interact, how we react when things go wrong. But aggression seems to be, I don't know, important to them." Mira frowned, flipping through some of the images on her tablet. "Important how? Like they admire it? Or like they're scared of it?" Daniel spoke up, his tone thoughtful. "Maybe both. Think about it. If you're an alien species used to order and logic, seeing humans act unpredictably must be terrifying. We don't follow rules the way they might expect us to. Chaos is kind of our thing." Rachel nodded slowly, adding, "And maybe that's why they're so fascinated. To them, we're dangerous, not because of our weapons or technology, but because of who we are, because we don't even realize how unpredictable we can be." Alex rubbed his temples, feeling overwhelmed. "So what does that mean for us? Are we a threat to them, or are they afraid of us?" Before anyone could answer, Ethan burst into the room, holding a printout of new data. His face was pale, his hands trembling slightly. "I think I know why they left," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. Everyone turned to look at him, their eyes wide with anticipation. Ethan placed the paper on the table and pointed to a series of numbers embedded in the signal. "These coordinates, they're not just pointing to where they came from. They're also marking locations on Earth, places where human activity is highest, cities, military bases, research facilities." Claire's stomach dropped as the implications sank in. "They're mapping us," she said quietly, "figuring out where we are, and maybe planning what to do next." The weight of Ethan's discovery hung heavy in the air. For all their efforts to reach out peacefully, humanity might have unwittingly painted itself as a potential danger. The aliens weren't just curious observers anymore. They were preparing for something. But what? As the group sat in stunned silence, Rachel glanced out the window at the night sky. Somewhere beyond the stars, the aliens were watching, waiting. And now, thanks to humanity's actions, they knew exactly what to fear. Outside, the wind whispered softly, carrying with it the uncertainty of what was yet to come. The revelation that the aliens might see humanity as a threat sent shockwaves through the team, and eventually the world. News of the discovery leaked to the media, sparking panic and outrage in equal measure. Governments scrambled to prepare for the worst, while conspiracy theories spread like wildfire across social media. Some people accused the scientific panel of endangering humanity by trying to communicate with the unknown. Others demanded answers. What had the aliens seen? What did they plan to do next? Amid the chaos, Alex and Claire worked tirelessly to make sense of the situation. They knew they couldn't hide the truth any longer, but they also feared how it would be received. Humanity wasn't ready to face the idea that its own unpredictability could be its greatest danger, not just to itself, but to others. Mia tried to stay optimistic, focusing on the message they had sent. "We showed them art, music, and nature," she reminded the group during one tense meeting. "That has to count for something, right? Maybe they'll see we're more than just chaos." Lucas nodded, though his usual confidence seemed shaken. Yeah, but what if they don't care? What if all they see is the bad stuff? Daniel sat quietly in the corner, his arms crossed tightly over his chest. He hadn't said much since the mapping coordinates were discovered, but his expression spoke volumes. Guilt weighed heavily on him. As a former soldier, he couldn't help but wonder if his past actions, training for war, following orders, had somehow shaped the aliens' perception of humanity. Maybe we've been sending the wrong signals all along, he said finally, his voice low. Not just now, but forever. Rachel placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. It's not your fault, Daniel. Humans have always fought. It's part of who we are. But so is creating, learning, and growing. That's what we need to focus on now. Despite their efforts to stay hopeful, paranoia continued to grow. Military leaders pushed for action, insisting that Earth needed to defend itself against a potential alien invasion. Scientists argued for patience, urging humanity to wait and see what the aliens would do next. The divide between caution and aggression widened, threatening to tear the team apart. One evening, as Alex stared at the stars from the observatory roof, Claire joined him. She held 2 cups of coffee, offering one silently before sitting down beside him. For a long time, neither of them spoke. Finally, Claire broke the silence. Do you think we made a mistake? Alex hesitated, sipping his coffee slowly. I don't know. Maybe. But even if we did, there's no going back now. Claire sighed, her gaze fixed on the horizon. What scares me most isn't what the aliens might do, it's how we'll react. Fear can make people do terrible things. Her words lingered in the cool night air. Below them, the city buzzed with activity, oblivious to the weight of the decisions being made above. Somewhere beyond the stars, the aliens waited, patient and watchful. Months passed, and life began to return to normal, or as close to normal as possible after such an event. The probe didn't reappear, and no further signals were detected. Slowly, the panic subsided, replaced by a fragile sense of calm. But the question remained, was this the end or merely the beginning? As Alex walked home one crisp autumn evening, his phone buzzed in his pocket. It was Claire, her voice trembling with excitement. Turn on your computer, she said. There's another signal. Alex froze, his heart pounding. On the screen was a simple message. Asterisk, we watched. You grew. We will meet again. Asterisk. Staring at the words, Alex felt a mix of dread and wonder. Humanity had changed, but had it changed enough? Somewhere out there, the aliens were waiting, knowing full well what scared them most. The untamed, unknowable spirit of humankind.